Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and to episode 2 of What TV Shows I Saw February 2023 edition. In general, February was a lot drier of a month than January was, like Popeye's Biscuits dry. The new releases this month were things like The Company You Keep and Animal Control and Not Dead Yet, stuff that just didn't really excite me all that much, to be honest. So as a result, a majority of this list is simply overlap from last month, as a lot of shows I saw continue to release new episodes each week. So I'm going to start with a bit of a speed round, as I don't have too much to add to the shows I've already mentioned as part of this series. Starting with The Last of Us, which continues to amaze in just about every way, as the bond between Joel and Ellie grows with each passing scene, with some of the best moments between them simply being them talking to each other. The performances are immaculate. If Melanie Lynskey, Murray Bartlett, or Nick Offerman don't get trophies at the Emmy this year, we all riot in the streets. And the production value of this series is top tier. Every little detail here is carefully planned out, and it never leaves your mind wandering. This is one of the most engrossing shows ever made, and I'm super hyped to see what they do next. American Auto continues to deliver laughs, as does Night Court, How I Met Your Father, and Abbott Elementary, all of which I'd say are worth your time if you like comedy in general. But the one thing I wanted to mention with these shows in particular are the amount of guest stars that are just here without any special mention or acknowledgement. Garrett Morris, Matthew Moy, Andy Richter, Gary Anthony Williams, Jim Cramer, Ben Fieldman, Eden Scher, Wendy Malick, Seth Meyers, Ryan Reynolds, Meghan Trainor, and Vince Staples have all appeared on one of these sitcoms in the last few weeks. And unless you were in the know, I bet you had no idea until I mentioned it just now. I mean, I know I'm old as dirt. I'm 22, by the way. But I remember when TV promos used to make a major deal about that week's guest star and get you ultra invested to see what they'd be up to. But nowadays it feels like you might see a passing post on Twitter or Reddit about someone featured in a guest spot, and then it just evaporates into the black hole of content that exists now. None of this is to take anything away from these shows or performers, but I just find it a bit odd. I've also been watching FBI Season 5 still, and it's been consistently fantastic. The show really did a 180 recently, as this latest season has to be the strongest the series has ever been, and it's most definitely the best Dick Wolf project on TV right now. SNL as well was new with new episodes, the big one being Pedro Pascal playing host, and I thought it was pretty good. I didn't mention it last time, but one of the interesting things about this season has been its hosts, which can often make or break any given episode, and it's been skewing away from traditional comedians and more to whoever is available, I suppose. Now, this is nothing new. SNL has a storied history from everyone from Robin Williams to Jimmy Smits, LeBron James to Donald Trump, no hosts, dual hosts, and famously host and musical guests being filled by the same person. But strangely, this season has only had 2 traditional comedians take the mantle out of the 12 total episodes thus far. Miles Teller, who opened the season, was recently featured in Top Gun, last year's biggest action film. You have people like Aubrey Plaza and Keke Palmer who have done comedic projects in the past, but have shifted more to dramas lately, and we even have back-to-back musical performers pulling double duty. So Pedro Pascal following in their footsteps isn't that surprising, I suppose. The Last of Us is the hot show at the moment. But even still, it does feel awkward having someone try to do something they're not fully equipped to pull off. There are some solid skits here, like the Mario Kart parody and the cold open being the clear standouts, but others like Fan Cam Assembly, where SNL pats itself on the back for having a viral moment from earlier in the season, and then running that shit into the ground, like, come on guys, you're better than this. Coldplay was a bore, by the way, which is par for the course for them anyway. Like, don't get it twisted, this was a good episode, but I do wish they had better luck booking hosts who know comedy in and out, rather than trying to get clicks after the fact by putting some big name in the thumbnail of their videos. Oh, also, I did recently watch the Woody Harrelson one as well. What the fuck was that monologue? So that's all the stuff that I saw that I previously talked about in the series, so now we can jump into the new stuff that I saw for the first time this month, starting off with the Malibu Rescue franchise. You might be saying to yourself, wow, an entire franchise, that's quite impressive. And to that I'd say, Thank you for noticing. It's really difficult to cuddle up in a cozy bed wearing a warm hoodie, eating snacks, and watching TV in the dead of winter. I mean, what if the power went out in the middle of a scene? The horror. Malibu Rescue is a product of Netflix, but it certainly doesn't feel like anything they've produced in the past, as it's essentially Baywatch meets One Chicago if it were written by David Malkoff and produced by Just a Laugh. It's got some pretty intense action sequences for adults, and its colorful, energetic presentation will surely entertain kids who are watching for its stars Ricardo Jurado and Brianna Yeedy, names from Nickelodeon's School of Rock. In fact, this very much feels like a Nickelodeon show with a ramped-up production budget, and it would fit well alongside any other Nick series, if not for the wildly uncomfortable labor scene. I was told this shit was for children, so why the hell is Fredward here delivering his own mom's baby? On a technical standpoint, the choice to opt for a serial story instead of non-continuous one-offs is much obliged, having organic shipping developments amongst its cast of young characters. But as for the negatives, some of the worst and most lazy ADR I've ever seen is in this show, and they do it constantly. I know it's probably not their fault, as the beach was probably really hard to film around, but it's super distracting. Also, I recognize this show as a comedy as much as I recognize Taco Bell as food. Like, I guess that's technically correct, but come on, you ain't fooling anyone. We all know Taco Bell's process is the same way those Krabby Patties were made. But all in all, I didn't regret watching this thing. It's breezy, cool, and never crashes too hard. Yeah, I know they're getting worse, don't rub it in. The Grammys were this month, and I thought they were pretty solid this year. Beyoncé made history as the most awarded artist in Grammy history. Kim Petras made history as the first trans winner for her work with Sam Smith on Unholy, and Harry Styles took home Album of the Year in a heated competition. Trevor Noah was a solid host, even if some of the bits went on a little too long, and most of the performers were good, if not a bit more theatrical than previous years. None more so than with LL Cool J headlining an all-star mashup of hip-hop greats to commemorate 50 years of rap music. Arguably the coolest thing the Grammys have ever put together. The In Memoriam section was well meant, but came off a bit obvious in my opinion. Also, the presenters were all over the place this year. Cardi B, Shania Twain, Olivia Rodrigo, Dwayne Johnson, Jill fucking Biden? Oh, come on, she's not even a singer. At least The Rock did Moana. But all in all, this was a fun watch and was well worth the time to check it out. Then I took a look at GSN's new series Switch, hosted by One Chicago's Jeff Hefner. I had no idea this was even a thing, but the almighty YouTube algorithm fed me a healthy dose of material from this series, including the first episode in full. It's not reinventing the wheel, as it's simply just trivia, but with the gimmick of contestants switching positions King of the Hill style. But for GSN, this is pretty much what I've come to expect from them now, and this show works best in small doses while you're eating dinner or playing a game with the family. Wholesome, straightforward content that you can't be mad at. I got stuck in a weird rabbit hole a while back and came across one of those 24/7 live streams of all things, Stuck in the Middle Season 1 on Disney Channel's YouTube page, simply because it wouldn't let up with the recommendations for it. Side note, YouTube, I love you, man. Couldn't imagine my life without you. But you know I like stuff outside of TV, right? I'm a TV YouTuber who watches a lot of TV on YouTube, so I guess that's all they feed me now. But I like music and cooking and sports and movies too, just an FYI. Anyways, I have never watched an episode of this one before, and I knew nothing of the story. The only things I knew about this show going into it was that it was a big hit for Disney back in 2018, and that viral clip of Jenna Ortega's character calling herself Wednesday that made the rounds on TikTok a few months ago.
This is what happens when there are 7 kids and you're stuck in the middle. If my family was a week, I'd be Wednesday.
Meta, I know, but this time around she's not dancing in goth makeup while battling COVID, but instead plays Harley, a crazy smart tween who's the middle child in a big Latino family. And that's about it. Oh wait, are you sure? Let me check something next quick. Yeah, that is it. Shit, that's all this show is. There's no gimmicks about teens who become YouTube stars and do wacky internet things, or a pop star who has to hide her true identity from everybody, or a teen who can see into the goddamn future to help her friends and family, or even a family of wizards. There are no wizards to be found here. There's no musical numbers either. Miss Ortega didn't end up becoming a famous singer like Olivia Rodrigo or Selena Gomez. Well, unless you count this.
Timing, 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 all about timing, timing, timing. Sit back in my chair, relaxing and reclining. He has not a care in the world, no I'm lying.
Man, I miss Juice. R.I.P. homie. It's not even a multicam either. There's no laugh tracks here. So, why the hell is this on Disney? Well, here's my theory. I think this show was originally developed for ABC, the nerdy kid who constantly gets picked on the broadcast TV playground. Disney owns ABC, and I feel like this show would have fit perfectly into their family sitcom lineup alongside shows like American Housewife and Blackish and Fresh Off the Boat, big hit comedies that were inescapable around the mid to late 2010s. The pilot does have some more edgy jokes and references that I bet mainly adults would appreciate, so this checks out. But remember when I said this show was about a super smart tween as the middle child of a large family? Now help me out here. I know that I've heard that somewhere in the past. I mean, I know I watch a lot of TV, but I can't shake this feeling, this thought that anyone has done this plot before. Whether it was network, cable, streaming, something. I know I've seen this somewhere. Now, I bet someone in the comments can help me out here because I'm positive I've seen this exact same song and dance in the past. Man, I cannot remember what the name of the show was, though. Life is unfair. So yeah, perhaps Disney realized that Stuck in the Middle may have been too similar to whatever that other show was, and maybe thought folks were going to hold them over the fire for ripping it off. Instead, deciding to pivot the series in a more family-friendly direction and focus in on Harley as opposed to the whole family like most other ABC shows typically do. And that's how it came to be as a solid hit for Disney for 3 seasons. So how is the show's quality? Well, it's honestly not that bad. This show makes me nostalgic in a way that's semi-hard to explain because I grew up with all those great ABC sitcoms, and this belongs in the honorable top 3 of them. The cast is really balanced and not overwhelmed by their own size, the messaging is really sweet, the writing is actually competent, and in my opinion, the best part by far is that there's actual continuity. After a whole month of watching School of Rock and Bizaardvark, shows that I love to hate, Stuck in the Middle is a genuine breath of fresh air. These are stories that have significant weight towards future plots, characters that are actually developed and not just caricatures of what TV characters are supposed to be. The show has some real serialized elements to it, and I love that so much for a kid's show. In fact, this isn't a kid's show, it's an everyone show. There's a good amount of stuff jammed in there for adults that they won't roll their eyes at. Between this and Malibu Rescue, I found a lot of hidden gems in the kids genre, and I would be stoked if you guys gave it a shot as well. The State of the Union was in February, and I saw that as well. I'm not going to go too in detail here because A, I'm not qualified for that. If you want nuanced political discussion, don't take it from a dude whose content is half making fun of Dan Schneider and half kissing Green Day's ass. And B, because it was fairly boring all things considered. Biden made some good points and some things that I also disagree with, just like any other president, and the Republicans booing wasn't that shocking, frankly, but it also wasn't like funny or anything. I heard some people call it embarrassing and cringy, but I don't think it was really that either. I don't know, maybe it's because we live in a post-January 6th world now, but anything that happens on Capitol Hill just seems tame by today's standards, like comparing Paw Patrol to Metalocalypse, you know? The only semi-entertaining part was Governor Huckabee Sanders' response, only because I get to make the joke that she came from training with Obi-Wan Kenobi before the camera started rolling. But yeah, it was a State of the Union. What exactly do you want me to say? Super Bowl 57 went absolutely crazy, with Kansas City taking home the dub over the Eagles, and the absolute GOAT himself, Patrick Mahomes, getting the MVP title. The commercials were solid, with the Breaking Bad popcorners, Will Ferrell, Netflix/GM, and Workday featuring Billy Idol, Ozzy Osbourne, Joan Jett, and fucking Kiss being highlights. But the real star of the night was Miss Rihanna with one of the strongest halftime shows in NFL history. This was one of those performances where you're left thinking about how many fucking hits she had and will continue to have. Compared to last year, which despite being a jam-packed, nostalgia-driven showstopper, had a bit of a too many cooks in the kitchen style vibe, Rihanna owned that stage. No Jay-Z, no Drake, no Kanye. But it didn't matter. She sounded great, she looked great, and showed everyone why she's been a hitmaker for 2 whole decades. And of course, my dad watching alongside me didn't recognize a single song she sang. Oh well, can't please everyone. Immediately following that was the season premiere of Next Level Chef, and it was great. If you saw my 2022 recap, then you'll know that this was in my top 5 shows of last year, so naturally I'm enjoying this season so far just as much. The core format has remained identical, but there are some minor changes that seem like they help the staff and the contestants rather than the audience, such as having the quote next level lounge, the equivalent to the balcony on MasterChef, as opposed to having the obnoxious cheerleading squad 10 feet away from the ranges. This episode following the Super Bowl threw you directly into the fire. And I'd imagine for the 15 million or so people whose first taste of the series came from this episode, that'd be a bit much to take in. But for the established fans already, this delivers on exactly what it sets out on. John Oliver came back for his 10th season with a premiere episode detailing the history of psychedelic-assisted therapy, and for once, this episode was quite optimistic. The A$AP Rocky bit was also one of the funniest things this show's done in quite a while. Overall, a solid return for the king of late night. And the most recent thing I watched was the season 17 premiere of AVGN on the NES classic Kid Icarus. As massive of a fan that I am of AVGN, Cinemassacre, James Rolfe as a whole really, I don't think I've ever gotten a chance to talk about them on this channel. And that's a shame, as he's been at it for well over 2 decades with tons of amazing shows and content to explore. Seeing AVGN go all these years later is awesome, like The Simpsons and South Park. The older ones are of course better, but of all the recent episodes, this was easily one of the strongest outputs the team has had in some time. The visuals were great, the costumes were memorable, and of course it helps that Kid Icarus and Pit are some of Nintendo's most iconic properties too. But yeah, overall, this was a really solid return to form for the show. Well done, fellas. I've also been watching a ton of TMZ and Extra each night with my parents, and a ton of Shark Tank clips on YouTube. Don't ask why, I just kind of fell into another rabbit hole there. But yeah, that's everything I saw in February. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, as I'm going to be doing these videos up until the end of the year. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.